The statue on the corner of the boulevard has moved exactly 3 inches since Tuesday. It is a subtle shift, the kind of minute discrepancy that most people would dismiss as a trick of the evening light, or a slight error in a fading memory. No one saw it move. No heavy machinery was brought in during the dead of night, and no maintenance crew was scheduled to touch the weathered gray stone of the silent figure. It simply exists as a part of the landscape, a sentinel of cold intent waiting for the city's frantic rhythm to finally break. For Theo, an urban surveyor who spends his days measuring the microscopic shifts of a city built on sinking ground, those 3 inches are an impossibility. He stands on the damp pavement, his laser rangefinder blinking a digital red warning that his eyes already knew. The city is changing, but not in the way the architects or the city planners intended. Most people walk past these architectural anomalies without a second glance. They assume the gargoyles, the support pillars, and the decorative garden lions are merely the remnants of a forgotten art project or a developer's attempt at urban beautification. We have been conditioned to see the city as a static thing, a collection of glass, steel, and stone that serves our needs and stays where it is put. But if you look closely at the pitted surface of what appears to be weather-worn concrete, you might notice something that defies every known law of inanimate matter. You might see the faint, rhythmic expansion of a pore, or a microscopic tremor that suggests a pulse beneath the heavy masonry. This is the new biology of the Anthropocene, a slow and calculated evolution that has turned our own infrastructure against us, hiding a predator in plain sight. The most successful predators in history are those that have learned to mirror the bones of their environment. In the shadowed corners of parking garages and the silent, urine-scented alcoves of subway tunnels, a new kind of life is asserting itself. These are not invaders from some distant, untamed wilderness. They are the descendants of the wild things we pushed to the edges of our civilization decades ago. Over generations, the pressure to survive in a world of glass and steel led to the suppression of vibrant pigments and soft furs. Nature has always favored the adaptable, and the transition to concrete mimicry represents the absolute pinnacle of biological survival. Their skin is no longer organic in the way we understand it. It is a complex, calcified matrix of calcium carbonate and silica, integrated with the industrial runoff of the streets. Biologists who have quietly studied the rare, discarded fragments of this hide describe it as a miracle of organic engineering. The dermis of these creatures has evolved to absorb minerals directly from the urban environment. They breathe in construction dust and heavy metals, weaving them into a skeletal structure that possesses the same density and texture as high-strength concrete. This creates a shell that is visually indistinguishable from a bridge support or a highway overpass. When they go still, their heart rate drops to a near undetectable level, and their muscles lock into a state of tonic immobility that can last for weeks without a single flinch. They do not hunt by chasing their prey through the streets. They hunt by becoming the scenery, waiting with infinite patience for the world to come to them. Theo watches a woman lean against a rectangular concrete planter near the subway entrance. She is scrolling through her phone, her back pressed against the rough, gray surface, seeking a moment of rest in the city's chaos. He wants to call out to her, to tell her that the texture of that planter is too uniform, that its temperature is a few degrees warmer than the surrounding pavement. He wants to explain that the stone shouldn't feel like it's vibrating with a low-frequency hum. But he hesitates. To speak of such things is to invite a diagnosis of exhaustion or acute paranoia. The city relies on the belief that its walls are solid and its foundations are certain. To acknowledge that the very materials we use to build our sanctuaries have been co-opted by a predatory force would be to admit a total loss of control. So, he watches as the planter remains perfectly still, its patience far exceeding the fleeting attention span of the humans passing by. These creatures are likely descendants of large feline and reptilian lineages, animals that once relied on speed and camouflage in the depths of the forest. In the urban jungle, speed is a liability. It draws attention and invites intervention. Patience, however, is a superpower. A predator that looks like a support pillar does not need to be fast. It only needs to be there when the light fails. They have developed a sensory system tuned to the specific vibrations of the pavement. Through the soles of their calcified feet, they can feel the approach of a pedestrian long before they enter a line of sight. They know the difference between the heavy tread of a construction worker and the hurried, rhythmic click of a commuter's heels. They map the city not by sight, but by the resonance of its inhabitants. This creates a psychological tension that permeates the modern city, even for those who do not consciously believe the stories. There is a reason people feel a sudden, inexplicable chill when walking through a quiet park at dusk. There is a reason you might find yourself crossing the street to avoid a particular alleyway, even if it looks perfectly safe and well lit. It is a primal instinct, a relic of a time when humans were not at the top of the food chain. Your modern eyes see a block of concrete, but your ancient instincts see a coiled muscle. The conflict lies in this widening gap between perception and reality. We have built a world of solid, unchanging things to feel safe. Yet it is that very solidity that now hides the danger. In the early morning hours, when the city is at its most silent and the streetlights are the only witnesses, the movement begins. If you are awake at 3 a.m., you might hear it. A slow, grinding sound, like two heavy stones rubbing together. This is the sound of a mimic shifting its weight. After 18 hours of decorative, frozen poses, they must stretch limbs that have become as stiff as rebar. They move with a heavy, deliberate grace, their joints clicking with a metallic resonance as they adjust their position to catch the first warmth of the sun reflecting off the glass towers. They are not mindless monsters. They are highly efficient biological machines that have mapped the city's patterns better than any urban planner. They know which bus stops are crowded and which stairwells are rarely cleaned. The human response to this emerging reality has been one of quiet, systemic denial. Public safety reports often cite structural anomalies or architectural debris when strange occurrences are reported near old monuments. When a person disappears near a construction site or a quiet plaza, it is blamed on the inherent dangers of the urban environment: crime, accidents, or simple misfortune. The data remains inconclusive not because the evidence is missing, but because the evidence looks exactly like the world we have created. We are looking at a predator and seeing a wall. To investigate further would mean dismantling the very foundations of our urban pride. It is easier to believe in a missing person than a moving statue. Architecture itself is beginning to reflect this subconscious fear. Look at the newest buildings in the financial district. They are designed with fewer alcoves, fewer decorative ledges, and smoother surfaces that offer no purchase for a mimic to blend into. We are inadvertently building fortresses against a threat we refuse to name. But the mimics are adaptable beyond our comprehension. If a building is made entirely of glass, they find the one concrete pillar in the lobby. If a park is filled with modern, minimalist benches, they adopt the shape of a rectangular slab. They are not fighting the system, they are utilizing it. The presence of these creatures has even altered the behavior of other urban wildlife. Rats and pigeons avoid certain statues, creating dead zones in the city's ecosystem that only a keen observer like Theo would notice. The biology of the mimic is a testament to the resilience of life in the face of concrete expansion. Their metabolism is geared toward extreme conservation, allowing them to go weeks or even months without a single meal. They are opportunistic feeders, sustained by the sheer efficiency of their stillness. When they do strike, it is not a chaotic event of noise and blood. There is no roar, no struggle that lasts long enough to draw a crowd. It is a sudden, heavy collapse of the environment. A pillar leans, a wall shifts, and then the silence returns. There is no evidence left behind, because the predator simply returns to its original position or moves a few blocks away to become a different part of the cityscape. By the time the sun rises, the sculpture is back in its place, as cold and indifferent as the day before. The moral weight of living in such an environment is heavy on the soul. It forces a reevaluation of what we consider natural. If an animal evolves to look exactly like a man-made object, is it still a part of the wild, or has it become a part of our technology? This blurring of lines creates a sense of existential dread that no amount of street lighting can dispel. We are no longer the observers of nature. We are the ones being observed by a nature that has learned to speak our visual language. The tension is not just about the physical danger, but about the loss of the city as a sanctuary. We built the concrete jungle to escape the real one, only to find that the real one followed us in, disguised as the very walls we built to keep it out. Consider the layout of a typical public square. There are benches, fountains, and often commemorative statues of historical figures. For a concrete mimic, this is a buffet of possibilities. They can sit for years in the middle of a crowded plaza, becoming a local landmark. People might even lean against them, or children might climb on their backs, never realizing that the stone they are touching is a living, breathing organism, with a nervous system and a hunger that is simply dormant. The animal's patience is its greatest weapon. It does not need to hunt tonight, or even this week. It can wait for the perfect moment of isolation, when the street lights flicker and the crowd thins out. The human element in this struggle is characterized by a desperate need for patterns. We want to believe that the world is predictable and that our maps are accurate. We want to believe that a statue will always be a statue. When that pattern is broken, the mind often tries to rationalize it away. A person might see a statue's eyes blink and convince themselves it was a trick of the light or a shadow cast by a passing car. This cognitive dissonance is what allows the mimics to thrive. They exploit our reliance on visual consistency. In a world of constant movement and digital noise, we have forgotten how to look at the things that don't move. We have forgotten that in the natural world, stillness is often the most dangerous thing of all. There are stories among city maintenance workers, whispers shared in the dimly lit break rooms of transit authorities. They speak of statues that are heavier than they should be, or stone surfaces that feel strangely soft for a split second before hardening under a heavy touch. There are accounts of power tools breaking against concrete that seems to bleed a thick gray resin instead of sparking. These stories are rarely verified, dismissed as urban legends shared by tired men in the middle of the night. Yet, the number of sculptures in our cities continues to grow, and no one seems to remember who commissioned them all. They appear overnight, quietly integrating themselves into the fabric of the streets. As we move further into this era of urban mimicry, the conflict between human expansion and animal adaptation will only intensify. We are paving more of the world, providing more cover for these creatures to inhabit. The animals are not the villains of this story. They are the ultimate survivors. They have looked at our world of gray and decided to become gray. They have looked at our stillness and decided to become still. The danger is not that they are different from us, but that they have become so much like the things we trust. They have mastered the art of being invisible by being completely obvious. Theo finishes his survey and packs his equipment with trembling hands. He looks back at the statue on the boulevard one last time. It looks exactly like it did 10 minutes ago. A frozen figure of a long-dead politician staring out at the traffic. But the laser rangefinder doesn't lie. It is still 3 inches off its mark. He feels a vibration through the soles of his boots, a low-frequency hum that might be the subway passing beneath him, or might be something else entirely. He chooses to believe it is the subway. He chooses to believe that the stone is just stone. It is the only way he can find the strength to keep walking toward his apartment. The next time you are walking home late and the street lights are flickering against the damp pavement, take a moment to look at the structures around you. Notice the weight of the pillars under the bridge. Notice the texture of the decorative lions guarding the library. If you see a crack in the concrete that looks a little too much like a closed eyelid, or if you notice a statue that seems to have moved just a few inches from where it was yesterday, do not stop to investigate. Do not reach out to feel the cold, rough surface. Do not try to prove yourself right. Simply keep walking. The city is full of silent things, and most of them are exactly what they appear to be. But in a world of concrete and steel, it only takes one exception to change the way you look at the world forever. The balance of power in the urban landscape is shifting. We have long thought of ourselves as the masters of the environment, the ones who shape the stone and pour the cement. But life is finding a way to inhabit those shapes, to turn our own creations into a camouflage that we cannot pierce. The Gray Watchers are here, and they are patient. They do not need to roar to be heard. Their silence is loud enough to fill the empty streets. As the sun sets and the shadows of the skyscrapers lengthen, the city begins to breathe in a way that has nothing to do with the people living inside it. It is the breath of 1,000 hidden lungs, waiting for the night to turn the concrete back into bone.